want to talk to you today about the power of silence. I want to speak to you about the importance of focusing on your own journey and not being distracted by the noise of this world. The world we live in is filled with distractions, social media, opinions, gossip, and criticism. People love to talk. They talk about you. They talk about your past. They talk about your mistakes. But I have come to tell you today, it is time to stop listening to the voices of the world and start listening to the voice of God. The world we live in today is filled with noise, constant chatter, opinions from every direction, and distractions that can pull us away from what truly matters. Everywhere we turn, people have something to say about how we should live, what we should do, and who we should be. The voices of society, social media, friends, family, and even strangers try to shape our identity. But in the midst of all this noise, we often forget the most important voice of all, the voice of God. Many people waste their energy trying to meet the expectations of others, seeking approval, and worrying about opinions that hold no real value. They let criticism discourage them, they let rejection define them, and they let doubt creep into their hearts because they have been too focused on the wrong voices. But the Bible tells us in Lamentations 3:26, it is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. That means we don't need to constantly respond to the world. We need to be still and trust that God is leading us in the right direction. Jesus himself was criticized, mocked, and doubted. The Pharisees constantly tried to trap him with their words. The crowds that once praised him later shouted for his crucifixion. People questioned his authority, his mission, and his identity. But Jesus did not allow their words to distract him from his purpose. He did not waste time defending himself to those who were never going to believe in him anyway. He remained focused, and he stayed silent when necessary. He knew that his purpose was not to win arguments, but to fulfill the will of his Father. So why do we allow the opinions of others to control us? Why do we let negative voices take up space in our minds? The more we listen to the noise of the world, the more we lose sight of who we are in Christ. Instead of looking outward for validation, we must look upward for direction. God has already called you, chosen, redeemed, and loved. You don't need to seek approval from people when you already have the approval of your Creator. When we stop listening to the noise of the world, we gain clarity. We stop second-guessing ourselves. We stop feeling the need to explain every decision. We stop wasting time on things that don't matter and start focusing on what does: our purpose, our faith, and our growth. There is freedom in silence. When you stop trying to respond to every critic, when you stop worrying about every opinion, and when you stop chasing the approval of others, you will experience peace like never before. You will hear God's voice more clearly, and you will move forward with confidence, knowing that He is leading the way. So today, make a decision. Stop listening to the noise. Start listening to God, and focus on the path He has set before you. The world will always have something to say, but only one voice truly matters: the voice of the one who created you. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. Too many people go through life feeling the need to explain themselves, defend their actions, or justify their choices to others. They feel pressured to meet the expectations of society, friends, family, or even strangers. But the truth is, no matter what you do, there will always be someone who doesn't understand you, doesn't support you, or doesn't believe in you, and that's okay. Your purpose is not to convince people of your worth. Your purpose is to walk in the calling that God has placed on your life. Jesus himself faced constant criticism. The religious leaders doubted him. The people questioned him. And even his own disciples sometimes struggled to fully grasp his mission. Yet Jesus never felt the need to prove himself to anyone. He didn't waste time arguing with those who refused to believe. He didn't try to convince the Pharisees that he was the Son of God. He simply stayed focused on his mission. When they mocked him, he remained silent. When they accused him falsely, he let his actions speak for themselves. His miracles, his love, his sacrifice, these things spoke louder than any words ever could. Many people struggle with self-doubt because they are too focused on what others think of them. They live for the approval of people instead of the approval of God. But Galatians 1:10 says, am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. When you understand that you don't have to prove yourself to anyone, you will walk in freedom. You will no longer feel the need to explain why you are making certain decisions, why you are growing, why you are changing, or why you are choosing to follow God's plan for your life. People may not understand you. They may not support you. But their understanding is not required for your success. Some of the most powerful moments in life happen in silence. When you stop trying to prove yourself, when you stop chasing validation, and when you simply focus on doing what God has called you to do, the results will speak for themselves. Your growth will be your proof. Your success will be your answer. Your life will be the testimony. Nehemiah was building a wall when his enemies tried to distract him. They called out to him, trying to get him to come down and argue. But Nehemiah responded in Nehemiah 6:03, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. That needs to be your mindset. You are doing a great work in your life. You are growing, changing, and stepping into God's purpose for you. Do not come down to argue with people who don't matter. Stay focused, stay silent, and let your life be the proof of God's hand upon you. Focusing on your own growth is one of the most important things you can do in life. Too many people spend their time looking at what others are doing instead of working on themselves. They compare their journey, their success, and their progress with those around them. But the truth is, comparison is a distraction. It steals your joy, wastes your time, and keeps you from becoming the person God has called you to be. God has a unique plan for your life. He did not create you to follow someone else's path or to live according to someone else's timeline. Galatians 6:04 says, let each one examine his own work, and then he will have reason for boasting in himself alone and not in someone else. In other words, focus on what God is doing in your life. Your journey is different from anyone else's. And when you compare yourself to others, you lose sight of the blessings God has placed before you. One of the biggest traps in life is constantly measuring yourself against others. You see someone who is more successful and you feel like you're falling behind. You see someone who seems to have it all together and you start to doubt yourself. But what you don't realize is that everyone has their own struggles, their own challenges, and their own process. Just because someone else is ahead of you doesn't mean you are behind. Just because someone else's life looks perfect doesn't mean they don't have battles you can't see. The only person you should be competing with is who you were yesterday. Are you growing? Are you becoming wiser? Are you becoming stronger? These are the things that matter. When you focus on your own growth, you will stop worrying about what everyone else is doing, and you will start making real progress in your own life. Look at the story of David. When David was a shepherd boy, his brothers were out fighting in the army. They had the experience, the training, and the approval of men. But while they were focused on status and position, David was focused on growth. He spent time alone, developing his skills, worshiping God, and preparing for what was ahead. He didn't compare himself to his brothers. He didn't try to be like them. He stayed focused on his own journey, and when the time came, he was ready to defeat Goliath. That's what happens when you focus on yourself. God prepares you in ways that others can't see. You may not be where you want to be yet, but if you keep working, keep growing, and keep trusting God, your time will come. Stop looking at others. Stop comparing and stop competing. God is working in your life, and if you stay focused on your growth, you will step into the blessings He has prepared for you. Distractions are one of the enemy's greatest weapons against your purpose. The moment you decide to grow, the moment you choose to focus on your goals, distractions will come. They come in the form of negativity, unnecessary drama, the opinions of others, and even self-doubt. But if you allow these distractions to take your focus, you will never reach the destiny God has planned for you. The enemy doesn't have to destroy you, he just has to distract you. If he can get you to waste your time on meaningless arguments, if he can make you doubt yourself, if he can fill your mind with worry about what others think, then he has already won. That's why you must be intentional about ignoring the things that don't matter. Proverbs 4:25 through 27 says, "Let your eyes look straight ahead, fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil." When Nehemiah was rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem, his enemies tried to stop him. They sent messages trying to get him to come down and argue. They spread lies and tried to make him afraid. But Nehemiah did not let their distractions pull him away from his mission. He responded in Nehemiah 6:03, "I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down." That needs to be your attitude in life. You are doing a great work. You are growing, improving, and stepping into the purpose God has for you. You do not have time for distractions. You do not have time for negative people. You do not have time for useless drama. You cannot come down. Some people will try to pull you into their problems. They will try to get you to fight battles that don't belong to you. They will try to make you prove yourself to them. But you don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. Your time and energy are too valuable to waste on things that don't matter. Look at Jesus. He knew his purpose. He knew his mission, and he refused to be distracted. The Pharisees tried to trap him with words. The people questioned his authority. The crowds misunderstood him. But Jesus never lost focus. He kept his eyes on the mission his Father had given him, and nothing could pull him away from it. You must do the same. Stop getting distracted by what others are doing. Stop worrying about people who don't support you. Stop focusing on what is behind you. Stay locked in on your future. Keep your eyes on your goals. And no matter what comes your way, remind yourself, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. There are times in life when the best thing you can do is stay silent and let God fight your battles. Too often, people feel the need to defend themselves, explain their actions, or prove their worth to others. But the truth is, not every battle is yours to fight. Some battles belong to God. And when you try to handle them on your own, you only exhaust yourself. The Bible tells us in Exodus 14:14, the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. This verse was spoken when the Israelites were trapped between the Red Sea and the Egyptian army. Fear surrounded them, and they wanted to turn back. But Moses told them to be still because God was about to make a way where there was no way. Many times in life we are tempted to react when people misunderstand us, criticize us, or try to bring us down. Our human nature wants to argue, wants to prove people wrong, and wants to show everyone that we are right. But silence is often more powerful than words. When you stay quiet and trust God, He moves in ways that you never could. Jesus himself gave us the greatest example of this. When he was falsely accused, when he was mocked, when he was brought before Pilate, he remained silent. Matthew 27:14 says, "But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor." He could have defended himself. He could have spoken a word and silenced his accusers. But he chose to remain quiet because he knew his silence was part of God's plan. Some of you are fighting battles that you don't need to fight. You are trying to convince people who will never believe in you. You are trying to gain approval from people who will never support you. But God is saying, be still. Let me handle this. When you stay silent and let God fight for you, He will vindicate you. He will prove your worth. He will silence every voice that rises against you. You don't need to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Your life, your growth, and your success will be the proof that God is with you. Think about David. Before he became king, he was constantly pursued by Saul. Saul was jealous of him, threatened by him, and wanted to destroy him. But David did not take revenge. He did not try to fight Saul on his own. He trusted God to fight for him, and in the end, God removed Saul and placed David on the throne. When you let God fight your battles, you will walk in peace. You won't be drained by unnecessary conflicts. You won't waste energy on negativity. Instead, you will stand firm in faith, knowing that God is handling everything in His perfect timing. Stay silent, trust Him, and watch Him move. When you focus on your purpose, your critics will seem less significant. One of the most important lessons you can learn is that your purpose is far greater than the opinions or criticism of others. Life is full of people who will try to distract you, discourage you, or make you feel inadequate. They will mock your dreams, question your decisions, and try to convince you to give up. But if you allow their words to define you, you will never reach the destiny God has planned for you. Nehemiah's story in the Bible is a powerful example of this. He was called to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, but his enemies did everything they could to stop him. They mocked him, spread lies, and even tried to trick him into leaving the work to meet with them. But Nehemiah was not swayed. He knew that his purpose was greater than the criticism he faced. In Nehemiah 6:03, he responded to the distraction, saying, "I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down." Nehemiah refused to let the voices of his enemies pull him away from the task God had given him. That same attitude is what you need to have in your life. You are doing a great work. God is working in you, and He has called you to a purpose that only you can fulfill. When you are focused on your purpose, the criticism of others becomes less important. People will talk, they will judge, and they will criticize, but their words do not determine your worth or your destiny. God's calling for your life is greater than any opinion or obstacle. One of the dangers of focusing on your critics is that it can cause you to lose sight of your own calling. If you're constantly looking around at what others are doing or worrying about how others view you, you become distracted. God has a unique plan for you, and comparing yourself to others will only hinder your progress. Remember that your journey is different, and your purpose is not to be like someone else, but to be the person God created you to be. Think about Jesus. He faced relentless criticism from the religious leaders, the crowds, and even his own disciples. They didn't understand his mission, and they doubted his authority, yet he remained focused. He never allowed the opinions of others to derail his purpose. Jesus knew his purpose was greater than any criticism he would face. And because he stayed focused on the mission, he fulfilled the will of God and changed the world forever. In the same way, when you keep your eyes on your purpose, the opinions of others fade into the background. You stop needing validation from people who will never see your true worth. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand your calling. And you stop allowing negativity to stop your progress. Today I challenge you to say, like Nehemiah, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Your purpose is worth more than the distractions. Stay focused, keep moving forward, and trust that God will lead you through every challenge. Your critics will fade, but your purpose will remain. And in the end, it is your purpose, not their words, that will define your legacy. There are moments in life when the most powerful response you can give is no response at all. Silence is not weakness, but strength. It is a deliberate choice to focus on the bigger picture and trust that the work you are doing will speak louder than any words could. In a world that thrives on noise, whether it's the constant stream of opinions from others or the pressure to prove yourself, there is incredible power in knowing when to stay silent. One of the most profound examples of the strength found in silence is seen in the life of Jesus Christ. As he stood trial before Pilate, he was accused of many things. The people demanded his crucifixion. But despite all the false accusations and criticism, Jesus remained silent. In Matthew 27:14, we read, "But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor." This wasn't a moment of weakness or passivity. It was a powerful display of trust in God's plan. Jesus knew that his mission wasn't to defend himself or argue with those who didn't understand him. His purpose was to fulfill the will of his Father. By staying silent, he allowed God's plan to unfold. And he demonstrated that sometimes God's will is best accomplished not by fighting back, but by trusting him completely. There are times in our lives when we are faced with criticism, misunderstanding, or even outright attacks from others. It's in these moments that we are faced with a choice. We can either respond out of our own strength, defending ourselves, or we can choose to remain silent and allow God to fight our battles. Silence can often speak louder than any words ever could. It is in these moments of silence that God's power becomes evident. When you choose to stay quiet in the face of unjust accusations or attacks, you are placing your trust in God's ability to vindicate you. You are declaring that his judgment matters more than any opinion or perspective that others may have. Many of us struggle with the urge to explain ourselves or justify our actions when others don't understand us. It's a natural desire to want people to know our heart, to want them to see our intentions clearly. But Jesus showed us that we don't need to defend ourselves to every critic. There is strength in remaining silent and letting our actions speak for themselves. The reality is, some people will never understand you, no matter how much you explain yourself. They will misinterpret your intentions, twist your words, or judge you based on their own limited perspective. But God sees your heart. He knows your motives, and he is the one who will bring clarity to the truth. Trusting in his ability to fight for you is an act of faith, one that frees you from the burden of defending yourself. In addition to silence, there is also power in staying focused on your purpose. When you know your mission, when you understand the work God has set before you, nothing can distract you from it. Jesus knew his mission was to bring salvation to the world, and he remained focused on that purpose despite all the distractions around him. He didn't let the crowds distract him, and he didn't let the opinions of the Pharisees pull him off course. He kept his eyes on the prize, and because of his unwavering focus, he was able to accomplish his purpose. The same is true for us. When we are focused on the calling God has placed on our lives, distractions become less significant. People will try to pull us away from our purpose. They will try to get us to argue, to fight, to prove ourselves. But when we remain focused on what God has called us to do, we can ignore those distractions and continue to move forward. Your purpose is greater than any distraction, and when you stay focused on it, the distractions will lose their power. But this focus also requires patience. Too often we want immediate results. We want people to understand us right away. We want to see the fruits of our labor without delay. But God's timing is perfect, and sometimes the greatest growth comes in seasons of waiting. It is in those moments of silence and focus that God is preparing us for something greater. Your silence does not mean inactivity. It means you are allowing God to work behind the scenes, even when you can't see it. At the same time, there is something incredibly freeing about not having to explain yourself to others. When we stop trying to justify every decision, every move, we are freeing ourselves from the opinions of the world. The more you seek validation from others, the more you give them power over your peace. But when you focus on your purpose and stay silent in the face of criticism, you take that power back. God's approval is the only one that matters. There's a certain peace that comes from staying focused on your purpose and not letting distractions get in the way. You can live your life knowing that God has a plan for you and that He is working in you even when you can't see it. Silence becomes a tool of trust, allowing you to rest in God's sovereignty and trust that He is working things out for your good. As the Apostle Paul wrote in Romans 8:28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." When you focus on that truth, distractions lose their power and silence becomes a powerful act of faith. When you focus on your purpose and trust that God is at work, you begin to experience a peace that surpasses understanding. You stop worrying about what others think of you, and you stop feeling the need to explain yourself. You know that your life is in God's hands, and that's all that matters. The opinions of others fade into the background, and you are free to walk in the calling God has placed on your life with confidence and peace. Staying silent and focusing on your purpose are acts of surrender. You're surrendering your need for control, your need for validation, and your need to prove yourself. You are trusting that God will fight your battles, that He will defend you, and that He will bring His purposes to pass in your life. And in that surrender, you find true freedom. Freedom to be who God has called you to be. Free from the weight of other people's opinions, and free to focus on the mission that He has set before you. Have you ever felt like you're standing on the edge of a cliff, looking into the unknown, wondering what's next? We've all been there, caught between where we've been and where we're headed, with no clear path in sight. The uncertainty of life can weigh heavy on the heart. Yet, in the midst of all the questions, there is one truth that stands firm. God knows what's next for you. Life doesn't come with a roadmap. We often find ourselves walking through seasons where the future is unclear, where we don't know what's waiting for us just around the corner. The uncertainty of what lies ahead can be unsettling, even paralyzing. We spend so much time trying to predict what's coming, to plan every detail, to control our future. But let me remind you of something powerful today. You don't have to know everything. It's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to step into the unknown and still believe that God has your back. We spend so much energy worrying about what's next that we forget one critical thing. God is not surprised by your uncertainty. He is not caught off guard by the twists and turns of life. The unknown is not a place of fear. When we understand that God knows exactly what's next for us, it's in those moments of uncertainty that He can show us His strength, His wisdom, and His timing. Think about it. How many times in your life has God led you through something you didn't understand at the time, only for you to look back and say, that was exactly what I needed? When you don't know what's next, remember that God does. And the best thing we can do in these times is to trust that He's already ahead of us, preparing the way. Let me tell you something powerful. The unknown is not your enemy. So often we think that uncertainty is something to be avoided, something that stands in the way of our peace, our happiness, and our success. But what if I told you that the very thing we fear most, the uncertainty, is actually the very place where God's greatness shines brightest? We're all wired to want certainty. We want to know what's next. We want to have control. We want the plan laid out before us. But God doesn't work like that. He doesn't need you to have all the answers. He just needs you to trust Him when you don't have them. In moments of uncertainty, we grow. It's when we don't know what's next that our faith is stretched and refined. The moment we surrender our need for control and embrace the unknown is the moment we give God the opportunity to move in ways we could never imagine. God specializes in the unknown. He doesn't need us to see the whole picture. He only needs us to take the next step in faith even when we can't see the next mile. Do you remember the story of Abraham? God told him to leave everything behind, his family, his home, his security, and go to a land he had never seen, to a place he didn't know. Can you imagine the uncertainty that must have been in his heart? Yet Abraham stepped out, not because he knew what was ahead, but because he knew the one who was leading him. And God didn't disappoint. The unknown became a stepping stone to the promises of God. So today, don't be afraid of uncertainty. Embrace it, because in that space of I don't know, God is waiting to reveal Himself to you in a way that will transform your life. Embrace the unknown with the confidence that the one who holds your future is never lost. You may be sitting here today feeling like life is a puzzle with too many missing pieces. You can't see the whole picture, and it feels frustrating not knowing how everything fits together. But let me tell you something powerful. God has a plan for you, and His plan is greater than anything you could ever design for yourself. It's easy to get caught up in the noise of the world, the deadlines, the pressures, the expectations. We start to believe that if we don't have it all figured out right now, we've somehow missed the mark. But trusting God's plan means resting in the knowledge that He's already mapped out your future, even when you can't see it. The truth is, God's plan doesn't require your understanding, it requires your obedience. We want to know every detail, but God calls us to take the next step in faith, even when we can't see the road ahead. Think about Joseph in the Bible. His journey was filled with betrayal, prison time, and heartache. Yet, in every step of his life, God was working a plan that Joseph couldn't see at the time. It wasn't until the right moment came that Joseph could look back and see the purpose in his pain, the meaning in his struggles. So today, I want you to know, your life is not a random series of events. God has already written the story, and He is guiding you every step of the way. Trust that even when things don't make sense, His plan is still unfolding, and it's leading you to greater things than you could ever imagine. How many times have you found yourself wondering, why is this happening right now? Why am I still waiting? We often struggle with God's timing because it doesn't match our own. We want answers today. We want progress now. But God works on a timetable that is different from ours. But let me remind you of something today. God's timing is always perfect, even when it doesn't make sense to us. We are often impatient, rushing through life, trying to get to the next stage, the next level, the next breakthrough. But God's timing isn't rushed. It's precise. It's intentional. It's deliberate. Every delay, every pause, every waiting season has purpose. And what seems like a setback in your life may actually be God's way of preparing you for something far greater than you could ever imagine. Think about the story of David. When God anointed him as king, he didn't immediately take the throne. Instead, he spent years running, hiding, fighting battles, and learning to trust God in ways he never could have imagined. David's waiting season wasn't a punishment. It was preparation. God was developing his character, strengthening his faith, and building the resilience he would need to rule the nation. So, if you're waiting today, waiting for a breakthrough, a door to open, a change to happen, remember this: God's delay is not a denial. It's a sign that he is at work in your life, preparing you for what's next. You are right where you need to be. And when the time is right, he will open the doors that no one can shut. Trust in his perfect timing, because God is never late. He is always right on time. How often do we find ourselves praying, asking God for something specific, convinced that we know exactly what we need? Maybe it's a job, a relationship, financial stability, or healing. We make our requests known, hoping that God will give us exactly what we've asked for. But what happens when God doesn't answer the way we expect, or when he says, not yet? Here's the truth. God knows your needs better than you do. He sees things you cannot see, understands what you truly need in ways that go far beyond your own understanding. Sometimes we think we know what's best for us, but God, in his infinite wisdom, knows what we need at the right time. In the Bible, Jesus tells us that if we, being human, know how to give good gifts to our children, how much more will our Heavenly Father give us what we truly need? But the key here is that God gives us what we need, not always what we want. It's easy to get caught up in desiring things that we think will fulfill us, things that may look good in the moment, but might not be what's best for our growth and future. Look at the example of the Apostle Paul. He asked God to remove the thorn in the flesh, something that caused him immense pain. Yet God did not remove it. Instead, he told Paul, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians 12:12. In other words, what Paul thought was a need wasn't actually what he needed most. What he truly needed was to experience God's strength in his weakness. When you feel like God is not answering your prayers in the way you expected, remember that he knows exactly what you need. Sometimes the things that are held back from us are not denials, they're divine protection. Trust that God sees your needs from an eternal perspective, and his provision will always be in perfect alignment with your purpose. God will provide exactly what you need when you need it. When you're in the midst of a season of uncertainty, it's easy to feel like you're stuck or that nothing is happening. You may be looking around wondering why your breakthrough hasn't come yet, why your prayers seem unanswered, or why things are moving slower than you hoped. But here's the truth. God is preparing you for blessings that you can't even imagine right now. What you see as waiting is actually divine preparation. God never wastes a season. Every moment of waiting, every challenge, every setback is a part of his plan to prepare you for what's next. You might not understand it in the moment, but every step is making room for the blessings God has in store for you. Think about the Israelites. They wandered in the desert for 40 years, not because God had forgotten them, but because he was preparing them to enter the promised land. That desert experience, though difficult, was necessary for them to grow in faith, to rely on God, and to be equipped to handle the blessing that was coming. The promised land was waiting for them, but they needed to be ready for it. Your blessings may be just around the corner, but God will only release them when you're prepared to steward them well. God doesn't just give you blessings, He prepares you for them. Sometimes He's strengthening your character, teaching you patience, or refining your heart before He opens the door to your next season. The unseen blessings are being built as you walk through the unknown. So don't despair in the waiting. God is at work in ways you can't see. He's shaping your future even when you don't feel it. And when the time is right, He will pour out blessings on you that will far exceed what you could have ever imagined. Keep trusting, keep growing, because your preparation is positioning you for the breakthrough that's on its way. There is something powerful that happens when we choose faith over fear. Fear wants to paralyze you, make you question your future, doubt your purpose, and second-guess every decision you make. Fear will try to convince you that the unknown is too risky, too dangerous, and that you are not equipped for what lies ahead. But faith doesn't just acknowledge the unknown, it steps into it with confidence, knowing that God is already there. Let's be real. Fear is natural. It's human to be afraid of what you cannot see, to be anxious about what you cannot control. But here's the key. Fear is a liar. Fear tells you that you're not enough, that you won't make it, that you're too small for the challenge. But faith reminds you that God is enough, that He has already gone before you, and that you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Think about Peter walking on water. He stepped out of the boat in the middle of a storm, a situation that seemed impossible. For a moment, his faith kept him on the water. But the moment he allowed fear to overtake him, he began to sink. Faith keeps you afloat, but fear will drown you. You don't have to know what's next to take the next step. What you need is to step out in faith, trusting that God is right there with you, even in the unknown. Fear will always try to tell you that you're not ready, that you're not capable, but faith will tell you that with God, you are more than enough for what's next. The fear of the unknown can keep you stuck, but faith in the one who holds your future will propel you forward even when you can't see the full picture. So today, choose faith over fear. Step into the unknown with confidence, knowing that God is already ahead of you, preparing the way. Don't let fear control your steps. Let faith guide you to the breakthrough that's waiting for you. There are moments in life when you may feel uncertain about where you're headed. You might look at your circumstances and wonder if you're on the right path or if you've missed your opportunity. It's easy to feel lost when the road ahead is unclear, but let me remind you today, your purpose is secure in God's hands. You are not here by accident. God didn't create you for random circumstances or pointless wanderings. From the very beginning, He knew you. Your purpose, your destiny, the unique gifts and talents He placed inside you, even when you can't see it. Your purpose is unfolding according to God's perfect plan. Think about Esther. She was just an ordinary girl in an extraordinary situation, facing challenges and fears that seemed impossible to overcome. Yet, in the midst of it all, God had a purpose for her, to save her people. Esther didn't know her purpose at first, but when the time came, it was revealed, and she rose to the occasion. Her purpose was secure, even when she didn't fully understand it. Your purpose is secure too. It's not dependent on your circumstances, your mistakes, or your doubts. It is founded in the fact that God has already prepared good works for you to do. Ephesians 2:10. You may not know all the steps ahead, but trust this. The steps you take today are leading you toward fulfilling the purpose God has for you. Don't let confusion or setbacks make you think your purpose has been lost or delayed. God's plan for you is unshakable. He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating events and aligning opportunities to bring you to the place where your purpose will be fully realized. Trust that in every season of uncertainty. So stand firm today, knowing that the work you're doing, even in the waiting, is all a part of the greater purpose God has for you. You are exactly where you need to be, and nothing can take away the purpose God has already ordained for your life. Change. It's one of the most intimidating words in the human vocabulary. The idea of stepping into something new, something unknown, can stir up fear and uncertainty. We are creatures of habit, and when things are comfortable, we tend to resist change. But I need you to hear this today. Change is not your enemy. It is the catalyst for your growth. God doesn't allow change in our lives just for the sake of shaking things up. He uses change to prepare us for greater things. When God shifts your situation, it's not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something new, something better is on the horizon. You might not see it yet, but God knows exactly what He's doing. The change you're afraid of is often the very thing you need to take you to your next level. Look at Abraham again. When God called him to leave everything behind and go to an unknown land, Abraham didn't know the specifics of where he was going or what was waiting for him, but he trusted that God was leading him to something greater. Change was the door to the promise. When you're faced with change, the temptation is to cling to what you know, to hold on to what feels safe. But God often calls us to step into the unknown, because that's where faith grows, that's where His power is revealed, and that's where the new opportunities and blessings will come. Don't be afraid to let go of the old season, because the new season will bring new strength, new wisdom, and new blessings. Change isn't easy. It can be uncomfortable, even painful. But if you trust that God is leading you, you can rest in the truth that He never brings you to a place without a purpose. Embrace the change, step out in faith, and know that God is using this moment to position you for something greater than you can imagine. Don't be afraid of what's next. God is already there, waiting for you. So many of us are trapped in the lie that our present circumstances define our future. We look at where we are right now, whether it's a struggle, a setback, or a season of waiting, and we begin to believe that this is all life will ever be. But hear me clearly today. Your present does not define your future. Just because you're facing challenges now doesn't mean that's how it will always be. Just because you're in a tough season today doesn't mean you're destined to stay there forever. God is in the business of turning things around. He specializes in taking situations that seem hopeless and bringing them to life in ways you can't even imagine. Think of Joseph. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. His present situation looked bleak, but Joseph didn't stay there. He trusted that his current circumstances weren't his final destination. What happened? God used those very situations to position him for greatness. Joseph went from the prison to the palace, and God used him to save a nation. His present didn't define his future. God did. Today, whatever you're facing, remember this: your future is in God's hands. Your circumstances may try to tell you one thing, but God's plan tells you something far greater. You are not stuck. You are being positioned, prepared, and shaped for the purpose that God has for you. Your current reality is just the beginning, not the end. So don't let where you are now make you think that's where you'll always be. God is moving you forward. Your present is just a chapter in the book, but it's not the whole story. Keep pressing forward, because the best is yet to come. Your future is brighter than you think, and God is already working behind the scenes to bring you into a place of abundance, peace, and purpose. Don't let today's struggles convince you that your future is limited. Your future is limitless with God. In a world that demands instant results and quick fixes, perseverance is a trait that's often overlooked. Yet, perseverance is key to unlocking what God has next for you. It's easy to start something, to be passionate when things are going well, But real growth and breakthroughs happen when you keep pushing forward, even when it feels like nothing is happening. God is not only concerned with the destination, but with what happens on the journey. Every step you take, even when it feels like you're not moving forward, is part of His perfect plan. Perseverance is not just about enduring the hard times. It's about allowing God to refine you in the waiting, in the struggle, and in the process. Think about the story of the Apostle Paul. He didn't have a smooth journey. He was shipwrecked, imprisoned, beaten, and mocked. But through it all, he persevered. Why? Because he knew that God was at work in him and through him, even in the hardest moments. And Paul's perseverance led to powerful ministry that reached the ends of the earth. If he had quit halfway through, we wouldn't have the letters, the encouragement, and the teachings that we hold dear today. Perseverance means you keep moving forward even when the road is tough. It means you don't give up when the promises seem distant or when the struggle feels overwhelming. Perseverance is trusting that God is not finished with you yet. He's still working, still shaping you, still preparing you for the breakthrough that's coming. So, when you feel like quitting, when the weight of the journey feels too heavy, remind yourself that your perseverance will bear fruit. God is working in ways you can't see. And every step of faith you take is positioning you for the future He's promised. Keep going, keep trusting, because the reward for perseverance is always greater than the sacrifice. God honors those who don't give up. We live in a world that tells us to take control, to plan every detail, to manage every outcome. We believe that if we hold tightly to the reins of our lives, we can steer our future in the direction we want. But I'm here to tell you something that might be uncomfortable. True peace comes when you let go of control and trust God's lead. The truth is, you were never meant to carry the weight of control. It's exhausting, it's overwhelming, and ultimately it leads to frustration. We may think we're in control, but we're not. Life happens, things change, doors close. Let's look at the example of Abraham once again. God called him to leave everything he knew and follow him into the unknown. Abraham didn't have a map, a clear plan, or any guarantees about what was ahead. But what he did have was trust. He let go of his own need to control the outcome and chose to follow God's lead. In letting go, Abraham stepped into the greatest blessings of his life. When you surrender control, you are opening yourself up to God's perfect will, His perfect timing, and His perfect plan. Control is a false sense of security. It makes us feel like we're safe, but the truth is, God's security is far greater than anything we can create for ourselves. He holds your future, your path, your destiny in His hands. When you let go and trust Him, you're saying, God, I believe that You know what's best for me, even when I can't see it. So, today, release the need to control. Surrender your plans, your fears, your anxieties, and trust that God will guide you to where you need to go. Let go of the weight that isn't yours to carry, and watch how God works in ways you could never have orchestrated on your own. He's got it all under control. All you need to do is follow His lead. Have you ever found yourself dreaming big, thinking of the future and imagining the best that life could offer? And yet, despite our best ideas, God's plans for us are always bigger, grander, and more incredible than anything we can imagine. Sometimes we can get so focused on our own dreams that we forget how vast God's vision is for our lives. Here's the thing, our dreams are limited by our experiences, our understanding, and our vision. But God sees the whole picture. He knows what you need, He knows what you can handle, and He knows what will bring glory to His name through your life. What seems impossible to you is nothing for God. He can do more in a moment than we can accomplish in a lifetime of trying. Think of the story of Joseph again. As a young boy, Joseph's dreams were big. He dreamed of his family bowing to him. But God's plans for Joseph were even bigger than his own imagination. What Joseph didn't know at the time was that God was preparing him to save a nation and to become second in command over Egypt. Joseph's dreams were just the beginning of what God had in store for him. God had a purpose that was far greater than anything Joseph could have imagined. In the same way, your plans may feel big to you, but God's plans are immeasurably greater. He has a purpose for you that is beyond your comprehension. The Bible says in Ephesians 3:20, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us." If you could see the incredible future God has already prepared for you, it would blow your mind. You may not understand it now, but trust that God is taking you places you've never dreamed of, places that will bring you closer to him and fulfill his greater purpose for your life. So when you find yourself dreaming big, remember this: God is dreaming even bigger for you. His plans for you go beyond anything you could ask or imagine. Trust him, surrender your plans, and know that the best is yet to come. One of the greatest fears we face in life is the fear of being alone, especially when we're walking through unfamiliar or uncertain times. It's easy to feel like you're on your own, navigating the unknown with no one to turn to, no one to support you. But hear me clearly today: you are never alone in the unknown. God promises in his word that he will never leave you or forsake you. That means in every moment of uncertainty, in every season of waiting, in every step you take toward the future, you are not alone. God is with you every step of the way. Think about the story of Moses. When God called Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses felt overwhelmed. He questioned his own ability, his worthiness, and his qualifications. But God didn't leave Moses to figure it out on his own. God said, "I will be with you," Exodus 3:12. When Moses was in the wilderness, when the path ahead seemed impossible, God was right there, guiding him, providing for him, and leading him to the promised land. And just as God was with Moses, he is with you. When you're walking through life's challenges, when you're standing at the edge of the unknown, don't ever think that God has left you behind. He is right there with you, surrounding you with his love, strength, and guidance. God knows what's next for you, and he will equip you for every step along the way. When you feel lonely, when the road ahead seems unclear, when fear tries to rise up and tell you that you're on your own, remember this: God is with you. You are not walking through the unknown alone. You have a mighty God who walks beside you, who guides you, and who will never abandon you. Trust that you are covered by his presence and lean into that truth. He has already walked ahead to prepare the way, and he will continue to walk with you every step of the journey. When life feels uncertain, when you don't know what's next, and when the path ahead seems unclear, it's easy to lose hope. But hope is the anchor that keeps your soul steady in the storms of life. And the greatest source of hope you have is the promises of God. You see, God's promises are not dependent on your circumstances. They are not shaken by the ebb and flow of life. His promises are eternal, unchanging, and powerful. When you put your hope in what he has promised, you are anchored to something far greater than your fleeting emotions or situations. You are anchored to God's truth. In the Bible, we see countless examples of God fulfilling his promises in ways that seemed impossible at the time. Abraham, Sarah, Noah, David, each of them faced moments of uncertainty, moments where they couldn't see how things would work out. But they held on to God's promises, knowing that God is faithful to do what he said he would do. Take, for example, the story of the Israelites. They were enslaved in Egypt, oppressed, and seemingly forgotten. Yet God had promised to deliver them. Even though their present circumstances made it look impossible, God's promise of deliverance was stronger than their current reality. He parted the Red Sea, led them through the wilderness, and brought them into the land he had promised them. Today, you may not see the way ahead. You may be in a place of waiting. in a season where the next step seems unclear. But God's promises still stand. He promises to never leave you, to guide you, to provide for you, and to give you a future filled with hope. No matter how difficult your circumstances may be, remember that God is faithful to fulfill His promises. So no matter what you're facing today, hold on to hope. Hope in God's promises is not wishful thinking. It's a confident expectation that what God has spoken over your life will come to pass. He knows what's next for you, and He is faithful to bring it to fruition. Your future is secure in His hands. Keep your hope anchored in His promises, because the best is yet to come. I want you to pause for a moment and think about where you are in life right now. Maybe you're facing uncertainty. Maybe you're standing at a crossroads, or maybe you're simply in a season of waiting. It's easy to get overwhelmed, to feel like you're walking blind, unsure of what the future holds. But I want to remind you of something that will change your perspective today. God knows exactly what's next for you. You might not have all the answers, and that's okay. But you have something better. You have a God who sees the end from the beginning, a God whose plans are greater than your own, a God who is walking with you, guiding you, and preparing you for what's to come. When life feels uncertain, remember this: God is working behind the scenes. You are not alone in the unknown, and you are not left to figure it all out by yourself. His timing is perfect, His plans are flawless, and His love for you is unshakable. Every challenge you face, every setback, every season of waiting is not a sign that God has forgotten you. It's a sign that He is preparing you for something greater. He's refining you, strengthening your faith, and positioning you for the blessings He has for you. You may not see it now, but God is working in ways you cannot yet understand. So let go of the fear, let go of the doubt, and trust that God's promises are true. You are on a journey, and though you may not know every step ahead, you can rest assured that God does. His plans for you are bigger than you can imagine, and the best is yet to come. Keep walking in faith, even when you can't see the way forward. God knows what's next for you, and His plans for your life are filled with purpose, peace, and a future that's brighter than you can even begin to comprehend. In conclusion, no matter where you are today, trust that your tomorrow is in God's hands. He knows what's next for you, and when you put your trust in Him, He will lead you to places you never dreamed possible. Keep faith, keep hope, and know that your future is secure in His hands.